où on va parler de microassurance et d'inclusion. And this discussion will be conducted exclusively in English. Please welcome Mrs. Judith L. French, Director of the Ohio Department of Insurance. Please welcome her on stage. Matthew Genazzini, Executive Director, Microinsurance Network. And Mr. Dirk Reinhard, he's Vice Chair of Munich Re Foundation. He's with us online because he couldn't make it at the Frankfurt airport, unfortunately, but he's with us online. Mr. Reinhard, are you with us? So maybe we're gonna get him online soon. Okay, maybe we hear his voice. He's here. Ok, on l'a, nous, dans notre moniteur, donc normalement, il va apparaître dans quelques instants. Dirk, vous m'entendez?
Oui.
Super, merci. Alors, je sais
Bonjour
que vous parlez
à tout le monde.
Je sais que vous parlez parfaitement français, mais vous avez préféré intervenir en anglais sur ce panel. Mrs. French, thank you so much for being here with us. You get a microphone? Yes? They're on?
They're on.
Mathieu? Français, anglais,
Yes.
English?
Je peux faire en français comme
vous
vous voulez.
Whatever you want. But just about Mrs. French.
The person named French only speaks English.
Yes. I didn't dare to make this joke. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Mrs. French. It's an honor for us to have you here, because when I've read your resume, I was really impressed. Really?
Lower expectations right now.
So let's talk about a very important topic, microinsurance. And that's something because you come from Ohio. And again, when I've read your resume, just say little words about Ohio. Ohio is maybe 12 million souls. The amount of premiums insurance in Ohio is $145 billion. 12 million people. In Morocco, let's talk about Africa. I don't have the figure in Africa, but Morocco is $6.5 billion. 40 million people. So why are you here talking about microinsurance? I'm going to tell you. No, I'm going to ask you in a few moments. Matthew, thank you for being with us. Merci d'être avec nous.
Merci.
Et quand j'ai dit ces chiffres-là, c'est vrai que je voulais juste qu'on puisse vous passer la parole et justement essayer d'avoir votre retour d'expérience. Nous dire déjà quelques mots sur l'institution que vous représentez et pouvoir nous donner un aperçu de ce qui se passe en Afrique, justement, en termes de microassurance.
Merci beaucoup. Merci d'être invité. Merci à la Fédération et à CAPS pour m'avoir invité. Je suis vraiment honoré d'être ici. Donc, je m'appelle Matthew Genazzini. Je suis le directeur d'un réseau qui s'appelle le Microinsurance Network. Nous, on est un réseau d'institutions qui sont impliquées dans la promotion et le développement de la microassurance ou l'assurance inclusive. On est un réseau de 120 institutions qui varient de membres qui sont des assureurs, des réassureurs, des autorités de réglementation, jusqu'à des agences de développement, des fondations comme celui de Dirk Reinhard, le Munich Re Foundation, des associations comme la Fédération marocaine des assureurs qui sont un membre du Microinsurance Network. Et ce qu'on essaye de faire, c'est créer une plateforme pour que ces institutions puissent parler entre eux et puissent partager l'expérience qu'ils ont dans la microassurance pour que les erreurs de un ne soient pas faites par les erreurs de l'autre. L'autre objectif qu'on a au niveau de le Microinsurance Network, c'est de comprendre un petit peu ce qui se passe dans ce secteur. Et comment on fait ça? On publie une publication qui s'appelle le Panorama de la Microassurance, qui regarde dans le monde entier, qui collecte énormément de données. La dernière publication, on a collecté des données sur presque 1000 produits à travers 37 pays dans le monde entier. Et on essaye de regarder un petit peu quels sont les produits les plus pertinents, quels sont les trends, quelles sont les innovations. Et on essaye de vraiment comprendre le marché pour que les assureurs, les autorités de réglementation puissent utiliser ces données et prendre des décisions pour améliorer la situation. Et donc, juste pour vous donner une petite overview de la situation, dans le dernier rapport qu'on a publié, on a identifié qu'il y a 344 millions de personnes qui sont couvertes par la microassurance, ce qui représente environ 11% de la population cible. Ce que cela signifie, c'est qu'une personne sur 10 est assurée. 9 personnes sur 10 n'ont pas d'assurance. Et ça, c'est quelque chose qu'on veut vraiment augmenter, on veut promouvoir. En Afrique, dans les 37 pays qu'on a regardés, il y avait 344 millions de personnes couvertes. En Afrique, on a identifié 38 millions de personnes qui ont un produit d'assurance. Ce qu'on a calculé, c'est environ 8% de la population cible ici en Afrique. Encore moins. Donc la bonne chose, c'est que ce chiffre, ils augmentent d'année en année. Mais quand même, il y a une énorme opportunité ici pour le secteur de l'assurance de rentrer ici parce qu'il y a énormément d'opportunités pour couvrir ce secteur-là.
Dirk, can you hear me? Yeah, I've seen you smile.
Yes.
All right. So we're talking about underserved communities in terms of insurance products. So what do you think that are the key innovations or development that may increase outreach to underserved communities?
Yes, thank you. And thank you again also to the Federation for inviting me. And I'm terribly sorry not to make it to Casablanca. I made it to Frankfurt. My flight was cancelled before the airport closed. I had to stay one night at the airport, and I just went back so that I have time to join online. So sorry about this. About innovations, we talk a lot about affordability when we talk about microinsurance or inclusive insurance. Inclusive insurance means insurance for those who don't have access to insurance, whether that's on a one-on-one or group insurance or nationwide insurance. And to make insurance more affordable, we need to reduce costs, and technology certainly can help. I think especially in sub-Saharan Africa, the introduction of mobile payment platforms such as M-Pesa in Kenya was really, really a game changer. Now we have hundreds of millions of people that can make payments with their cell phones, and that can be used to receive premiums, can be used to make payments. And then in addition, the cell phone, we feel like the iPhone has been around forever and we can't live without it, but it's only maybe around 15 years old, 17 years old. But it gives us lots of opportunities in data gathering. The new sources of data, whether that is through satellites, drones, or even iPhones with GPS and being able to take pictures, is an enormous new game changer because availability of data in many lines of business is a big problem. And then sometimes, for example, when we talk about health insurance and we look at why is health insurance not available, then we realize that maybe the insurance itself is not the problem, but the access to health services. And telemedicine, for example, can really improve access to health services and then make insurance necessary. I don't need insurance if I don't have access to health services. So we have seen that that can really help to, increase outreach to health services also in rural areas. You can get online consultations with your phones. And then we see many, many fintech companies, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, Kenya, Rwanda, West Africa, fintech companies that close the gap, provide interfaces, provide online platforms, and really make it easier for insurance providers to reach their clients, and also for clients and payment platforms to reach the insurance providers. So make the linkages between the different stakeholders in that market.
Okay, so if I get it, it's more about availability, channel distribution, channels, affordability, than the products themselves. From the regulation I mean, affordability, availability, but sometimes doesn't fit together. So how can you balance these priorities to ensure that consumers have the ability to remain covered while the insurers remain solvent? Because solvency is something very important too.
You're correct that it's an absolutely critical part of what we do as regulators. And to answer your very first question, my colleagues and I are here to collaborate with Morocco and the Moroccan industry. And whether it's in the United States or here in Morocco, you do have to have those factors in mind all the time that sometimes might feel competing around affordability and availability. You know, we think about what's happening all over the world, where if you've got rising risk, changing risk, rising costs for the insurers, that can very well translate into higher premiums for our consumers. And some of the key factors that we're seeing and considering are around inflation, higher building costs, higher labor costs, natural catastrophes. You've heard a lot about hurricanes and wildfires. We haven't had those in Ohio, but we have tornadoes. And so I think it's always a real balancing act for a regulator, whether here or elsewhere. So one of the things that we're doing in the US is putting together what we call a playbook around affordability and availability that really collects the information from across the country. It's something that not only can I use as a regulator, but I can then present to my legislators, to my policymakers, to help them understand what's happening in other parts of the country and how we might have dealt with those situations and still kept prices affordable and products available to our consumers. So I can learn from the home hardening programs in the coastal states and maybe apply that in Ohio and the kind of products that we offer. But you are correct that it's a constant balance in our minds.
Can I just jump in and
please.
And talk about the importance of regulation within the kind of microinsurance sector? What we saw from the study that we did, we looked at which countries have specific regulation for microinsurance. And we saw a clear correlation between those countries that have regulation in place and the number of people that are insured through microinsurance. And so I think it's 9 out of the top 10 countries who covering the most people have some sort of regulation. And this regulation, what it does, it enables insurance companies to diversify, innovate, use different distribution channels, and really enables them to access these populations through different ways.
What are the main barriers? I will ask you the same question to Matthew and Dirk, that maybe can prevent people from having access to that kind of products right now.
Do you want to go first, Dirk?
Yeah, I'm happy to do so. And I just would like to add to the regulation, just to give an example that an experience that I had in Morocco. I was talking to the Moroccan regulator, and we were talking about exactly payment platforms. And he said, well, this is very interesting, but it wouldn't be allowed in our regulation, so we have to change that. So regulation needs to adjust to technology and innovations to make innovative products possible. Now, the barriers, and I think the moderator already mentioned some of the barriers. When you ask peers and experts, some say the three main barriers for reaching more people is distribution, distribution, distribution. That's probably only part of the story, but certainly distribution and everything related to distribution is a key challenge. And the other challenge or barrier is, and I think we have to be looking at ourselves as insurance industry, Lorenzo Chan, the CEO of Pioneer Insurance in the Philippines, and really one of the pioneers serving millions of low-income people in his country, and he was also the chair of the board of the Microinsurance Network for a very long time. He said, we have enough insurance companies around the world, but we don't have enough insurance companies that are interested in the market. So I think the insurance industry really needs to understand that there is a market, there's an underserved market, there's an opportunity. And they also need to see how important risk management is for sustainable economic development. Insurance has to play its role to offer these services. Insurance needs to understand the client needs. We need the right insurance experts. And finally, when we talk about innovations and technology, always keep in mind the client needs to understand it. And we heard also in the previous panel, there has to be a human person involved always, I believe, to make the linkages between technology so that people really trust the product that they buy.
Only distribution.
Sorry?
He said distribution.
Yes.
You're telling what experts said. But what about simple and understandable product?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the same thing for low-income people, and I mean, I don't know what words to use, but maybe regular people like me. When I buy an insurance product, maybe, well, I read my contracts, but a lot of people do not read, and maybe it has to be simple to buy, simple to find, and simple to compensate with. It comes to have a compensation.
Yeah, I mean, I often refer to, when people ask me what the hell is microinsurance, I often say it's insurance back to basics. It's insurance that really goes back to the basic. You pay a premium for if something happens. If that thing happens, you get X amount, and that's it. But one of the things that Dirk mentioned was, and I think which is important, is this notion of trust, the notion of trusting your insurance company. I always refer to myself, and I look at myself, and the insurance products that I've bought in my life have all, 95% of them have been because I've had to. Not because Monsieur le Président said earlier, no one wakes up in the morning and decides to buy insurance. And this is something that we need to understand, that, and for a population that has limited resources even further, it's going to be even more difficult for them to take some of those resources and buy an insurance product in case something happens. So we need to really think about how we can integrate insurance into other services or other products. We have it with credit, where credit life products, life insurance comes with the credit. But we need to go beyond that and see what other insurance products can we link to other services and products, so that people don't have to make, the choice isn't there. Essentially, they buy this product and they get insurance as an add-on, as a benefit. And I think that's the way we can move forward, because we're not going to convince people to buy insurance, especially this population. It's going to be it is very difficult.
Mrs. French, talking about this, how can insurers demonstrate that new products, innovative products, are understandable and are fair, chiefly fair?
Well, you've heard it spoken about a couple of times today. We really encourage, as regulators, to come for that new product, come to the regulator first. let us help you from the very beginning to develop the product in a way that it is understandable and fair. And so, as an example, in Ohio, we have what we call an emerging product initiative. And if you, as a company or an individual, have a new product that you're thinking about introducing, we will offer you a team of people who will act as a concierge, that we will help you develop a product that is best for consumers from the very beginning. We will be responsive to you. Now, it might be, we had one of our domestic companies just this week celebrated a 100-year anniversary, Nationwide Insurance. And you can imagine they're very well versed in what is required for insurance regulation for a new product. But you might also get a guy who developed an app that he thinks ought to be an insurance product, who has no idea about what our regulations require. And if from the very beginning we can have a consumer representative there to say, this is the piece of this that is not understandable, we have the legal team there to say, this part of your product is not meeting our legal requirements. If we can do that early in the process, then we are ahead of the game.
Dirk, you talked about a lot of innovations in terms of insurance products for this target markets. How can you translate all this innovation in dimension adapted products for this target market? And what should be the role of governments to help this?
I'd just like to comment that we just heard that the insurers should talk to the regulators, and you just mentioned that if something is not compliant with the regulation, then this is something that needs to be discussed. But also the other way around, sometimes maybe with new products, the regulator hasn't even thought about regulating it. AI, or I spoke about the mobile payments, so also maybe the other way around, sometimes the regulator needs to think, how can we create an enabling environment so that new products are really there? And I think this requires a look at the challenges and barriers in the market. Some call it a diagnostic. So do a diagnostic in your market to understand where are possible challenges and where are possible opportunities. And altogether, and we keep on hearing this again and again, one stakeholder alone cannot solve the problem. So we need a multi-stakeholder platform that includes the regulators. The regulators sometimes report to the ministries, and so that involves the governments. We need the insurance industry. In some countries, especially in emerging economies, we need the donors. And they have to work together and really develop a long-term strategy, start with a diagnostic, and then develop targets and stick to that. It's a long-term process. We cannot expect to come from 0.5% insurance penetration to 5% in 3 years. That requires years and years. And also within the insurance industry, it requires a long-term approach and a dedicated management. I spoke about Pioneer Insurance. There, the management really decided we want to enter that market. And they developed products, they failed, and they started again, and now they serve millions of people. But it requires time and dedication and the strategic approach. And there the governments especially play a key role because they can facilitate that process and steer the process and create that stakeholder platform.
Judith?
I think that's a very good point and a bit of a challenge to the regulators. It is not only about the developer of the product where we get to say that's not going to work. I think you're right that it's also imperative for regulators to be open to changing the laws, to changing our rules to allow more innovation. My policy is I will get to yes if I can. But I think you're right, Dirk, that it's really an obligation on both sides to change and to adapt with new technologies.
What we are seeing in some markets are sandboxes, which are allowing, especially these insurtechs, to innovate and try things out within a kind of structured framework where they're allowed to not do what they want, but...
Judith, what about the use of AI? I mean, in the former panel, Julia said one of the main concerns is to prevent from discrimination between consumers. Do you think that using AI in these products can help this underserved population to have access to that kind of product?
It is certainly very possible for AI to help underserved communities, both in terms of allowing better access, but also in allowing more personalized service. So I think of it in my own life, there's a spectrum. My son is 29. He is not going to talk to an agent in order to buy car insurance. He will rely exclusively on technology to get a product, to pay for a product, to decide what product he needs. And so AI can be very useful in that process. My mother is 89. She is not going to use technology to obtain a product. She's going to go to the same agent or the agency that she's used for decades to get that product. Now, the agency will use technology, will use AI to help her in pricing. But strangely enough, my 89-year-old mother is using telematics in her car. Because she's a very good driver, a very safe driver, she can save money that way. So you can really see the spectrum of how AI might bring a lot more personalization to products, but it is going to have to be used in very specific ways that can meet a broad audience. And like we've heard before, you do have to have equal access. You have to have access to internet. You've got to have access to that technology. So I do worry sometimes that sometimes it is so focused on, and Julia made this point, it's so focused on technology that you lose those individuals that don't have the easy access to technology. But you can think about it in the health space. You could tailor products to specific conditions. You can think about it in the property casualty area where a smart home, for example, could provide a lot more data using AI. But what we've learned in the US is we don't have enough information, though, about how companies are using AI, and we've started a pilot project to just get more data around that, so we'll have better answers about how is it being used, is it discriminatory. We're looking at it from a market conduct perspective, making sure that we understand as much as we can.
And my very last question will be Dirk, would you like to say something?
Yeah, can I just quickly add to that? I think AI has huge potential to get the costs down in loss adjustment in many ways, and so there's a big potential. We always need to keep in mind that it's, again, about trust. So you don't want to talk to AI if you just lost your house and maybe you don't have internet connection. So then you get frustrated. I mean, I just had the example trying to change a flight and you can only talk to an AI agent. And then that makes you never ever wanting to buy a flight again with this airline. So we really have to be very cautious in applying technology that does not frustrate the client.
Matthew, so far we've been talking about people. So let's talk again about people, but about businesses, companies, medium, small businesses, self-employed people, underserved too. I guess you have some data about this. What has your data told you about this specific segment?
In fact, on the SMEs, we have very little data, and that's something that I wanted to bring up. From the report that we did, we looked at close to 1,000 products. Of those 1,000 products, only 23 were specifically for SMEs, showcasing that there is a real lack of available products there for businesses. Most of these products were business interruption products. If we look at the products, of these close to 1,000 products, 80% of those products are life or accident products. So we're looking at very simple products. The rest are, health products, which tend to be hospital cash, or agricultural products linked to climate, index insurance, and so forth. What we're seeing is in 2023, there were 55 products, microinsurance products were launched across the countries that we looked at. Of those products, what we saw was like a lot of them were property insurance and agricultural insurance. And so we're seeing a kind of change in terms of the products that are coming out that are focusing more on these other risks rather than life, which is quite important. But what I did want to mention, which picking up on what Dirk said, was this, like, for insurance companies to enter into this market, Dirk mentioned that they need to have this long-term strategy, this long-term approach. From the data that we saw, it takes around 4 years for a product within this sector to reach any sort of scale, on average. So you really need to have this kind of long-term approach and accept that there are going to be difficulties, but having the buy-in from the, from the ground up to the management, to the board, is essential, because you all need to go into that direction. A couple of other things I wanted to mention in terms of what's important for companies to take into account. The other thing that we saw from the data is that those products that have multiple distribution channels are much more successful than those that just rely on one distribution channel. We have some products, one product in Pakistan that has that has 38 product distribution channels. So really trying to kind of not find the perfect distribution channel, but actually kind of just diversifying the way that you sell your products. Two last things. The second one is having a client-centric approach. And this is really putting the client at the center of all the decisions that you're making, whether it's in the product design phase to the product management phase. Really ensuring that everything revolves around the client and you're putting yourselves in the client's shoes. We've seen that, from examples that we've seen, organizations that use this approach are much more likely to be able to design a product that really supports the needs of the client. Pioneer, what Dirk mentioned, is just one of those examples. And the last one, which I think is so fundamental, is how you manage the claims process. When you're talking about low-income populations or vulnerable populations, when a catastrophic happens, they don't have the available resources, so they need the money straight away. So if they need to wait 1 month, 2 months, 3 months,
they need the money back.
It's not going to work. Okay. And we have examples of companies that within 24 hours are paying claims. Some even within I think it's 5. I can't remember. Below 24 hours they're paying claims. So there is ways of doing it, but it's about being proactive and finding those ways where you can actually pay those claims in a quick and efficient way.
Thank you so much. And my very, very last question, and the most important question that will make the link with the following panel, is for you, Dirk. Have you purchased a cancellation insurance with your plane ticket?
He's German, of course he did.
Okay, thank you so much. Vous pouvez applaudir mes intervenants.
That regulates that. So.
Thank you, Dirk, and looking forward to seeing you here next time. Merci d'avoir été avec nous quand même. Thank you so much.
Merci beaucoup.
Oh, thank you so much. Let me help you.
Merci à vous.
Vous pouvez applaudir mes intervenantes qui me sont restées pour ce premier panel des discussions.